everything you thought you understood about Maxton Hall is about to flip upside down. And this new trailer proves it, because after what happened in Episode 4, Episode 5 isn't just drama, it's a storm waiting to explode right in front of Ruby and James. Episode 4 left me with this heavy feeling in my chest. The kind that stays even after the screen goes black. And the moment I watched the Episode 5 trailer, that feeling only grew stronger. Because everything we feared, everything we hoped wouldn't happen, is now standing right at Ruby and James's door. What breaks my heart the most is how Episode 4 finally gave us a version of Ruby and James that felt peaceful, soft, and genuinely happy. For the first time in so long, they weren't fighting the world. They were just two people in love. But I think we all knew deep inside that this calm wasn't going to last. And the trailer makes it painfully clear, their happiness has caught someone's attention. Someone who never lets anyone breathe freely, Mortimer. From the start of the trailer, you can already sense a shift in the air. The softness of their date, that precious smile Ruby finally allowed herself to have. The way James looked at her like nothing else mattered. All of that gets overshadowed by one man stepping back into the house earlier than expected. The moment I saw Mortimer return, I felt the same fear Ruby probably felt in that very second. Mortimer walking into that home is not just a father coming back from a trip. It is a storm entering a room, and everyone knows something is about to break. And the worst part? They don't even get a moment to prepare. They don't get to hide. They don't get to breathe. Mortimer is simply there, standing in front of the one thing he never wanted to see, James choosing Ruby over the life he planned for him. I know many of you were hoping that after the beautiful date, after Ruby laughing so freely, after James holding her like he never wanted to let go, maybe they would get at least one more day of peace. But no. Episode 5 will be the moment reality hits them hard. The trailer suggests that Mortimer's anger won't come in loud shouts at first, no. His silence alone is dangerous enough. The way he watches them, the disappointment, the control, the expectation that James will fall back into his old obligations. And the terrifying part is, James knows exactly what that look means. He has lived under that shadow his entire life. And now he is expected to choose the life he wants or the life Mortimer demands. What makes everything even more heartbreaking is that Ruby is stuck in the middle of a war she never asked for. She doesn't want James to lose everything because of her. She doesn't want to be the reason he fights with his father. But she also can't pretend she doesn't love him. In Episode 4, when they both promised that they wouldn't give up on each other, it was real. It was genuine. It was the kind of moment you wish you could freeze in time. But now, standing in front of Mortimer, that promise gets tested. And not lightly. The trailer hints that the pressure from Mortimer will push both of them into a place where every decision feels like a trap. If James chooses Ruby openly, he risks losing his inheritance, his stability, and even Alice's support, because we know how much influence Mortimer has. And if Ruby stays with James, she risks losing her scholarship and her chance at Oxford, the very dream she has worked for her entire life. It's painful to imagine that someone could force two people to weigh love against their future. But that is exactly the kind of cruelty Mortimer is capable of. And Episode 5 will show us that clearly. What scares me the most is how calm Mortimer looks in the trailer. Calm people who know their power are always the most dangerous. He doesn't need to shout to break someone. He just needs to speak one sentence, one threat, and the whole world shifts. And with Alice and Mortimer being so close, Ruby's safety is hanging by a thread. Their future depends on choices they are not ready to make yet. But the world around them is forcing the decision anyway, and as much as I love their courage, as much as I believe in their love, the trailer makes one thing painfully obvious: Episode 5 is going to test them in ways that could change everything. The moment Episode 4 ended, I already had this heavy suspicion that Mortimer's return would twist everything. But the Episode 5 trailer makes it even clearer. Nothing in Ruby and James's life will stay untouched anymore. The entire energy of the story shifts, almost like a shadow falling over every bright moment they just created together. And what hurts the most is how sudden this shift feels. One minute, they are laughing on their date, holding hands, dreaming about a future where they finally get to breathe freely. And the next minute, they are standing face to face with the man who has built his entire world on control, expectations, and fear. That small glimpse of happiness, that thought that maybe they would finally get a few peaceful days, gets crushed the second Mortimer steps inside the house. It is almost heartbreaking how quickly everything changes with just his presence. What I feel most deeply watching the trailer is the fear in the air, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and suffocating. Ruby knows she is not welcome in Mortimer's world. She knows he sees her as a threat, someone who is messing with his perfect plan for James. And James knows his father is the kind of man who punishes people not with shouts, but but with consequences that ruin their futures. The silence between them is almost scarier than a fight. That silence says everything Mortimer doesn't have to say out loud. I decide your life. And that is the kind of pressure that breaks people slowly, piece by piece. Another thing the trailer highlights is how deeply uncomfortable James becomes the second Mortimer questions him. You can literally feel how small Mortimer tries to make him feel, like he is just a child who needs to be reminded of his place. James' entire body language shows it, the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes shift, the way he tries to stay calm but you can see fear underneath. And this is what makes the situation so painful. Because we just saw James being so free with Ruby, smiling like he hasn't smiled in years. And now, that version of him gets ripped away instantly. It is like Mortimer takes the oxygen out of the room. But what I think episode 5 will show most clearly is Ruby's strength. Even though she is terrified, even though she knows she is walking into a situation she cannot win easily, she still stands by James. She doesn't run. She doesn't hide. She doesn't pretend she is not part of his life. Ruby's bravery is quiet but powerful. She chooses love even when every path ahead looks dangerous. And that strength is something Mortimer can't control, no matter how hard he tries. But the problem is, powerful men like Mortimer don't stop when they feel threatened. They push harder. They look for weaknesses. And Ruby's future, her scholarship, her place at Oxford, her chance to change her entire life is exactly the kind of thing Mortimer would use against her. The trailer also hints at something else that breaks my heart even more. Lydia's fear getting worse. Every time Mortimer loses control of James, he turns that anger toward Lydia, and in episode 5, things will be even more dangerous because Mortimer's frustration is growing. The trailer doesn't show much of Lydia, but the little we see is enough to understand the truth. She is days away from breaking. She keeps standing between Mortimer's rage and the family's stability, but she is tired, scared, and hiding the biggest secret of her life. And it is only a matter of time before Mortimer finds out. That discovery could change everything, not just for Lydia but for everyone at Haxton Hall. And then there is Cyril. The trailer seems to hint at him watching Lydia more closely. And that makes everything even messier. His interest in her is becoming more obvious. And his jealousy might push him into doing something reckless. When insecure people start feeling rejected, they often try to take revenge. And the idea that Cyril could hurt Lydia, or even James, makes the trailer even more unsettling. I keep thinking about how fragile everything is. One wrong move, one overheard conversation, one emotional outburst, and everything could collapse. What makes this trailer so intense is that every character seems to be standing on the edge of something dangerous. Ruby is fighting for love and her future. James is fighting his father and himself. Lydia is fighting fear and secrets. And Mortimer is preparing to fight anyone who dares to disobey him. And that is what leads to the most terrifying question episode 5 raises. What will James choose? What will Ruby sacrifice? What secret will finally explode? Everything in this story is tightening, pulling, building. And episode 5 is going to be the moment where the pressure becomes impossible to escape. The closer we get to episode 5, the more it feels like every single storyline in Haxton Hall is slowly tightening into one big storm. And what scares me most is how quietly everything is building. The characters aren't shouting or fighting yet, they're holding everything inside. Trying to pretend they're fine. Trying to act normal even though their whole world is shifting beneath their feet. That quiet tension. That slow pressure. That's what makes episode 5 feel so terrifying. Because when people stay silent for too long, the explosion hits even harder. And in the trailer, that silence is everywhere. You can feel it in Ruby's eyes, in James's shaky breaths, in Lydia's forced calm. And even in the way Mortimer moves through the house like he owns not just the walls, but the people inside it. What breaks me the most is how episode 4 gave us such a beautiful, fragile glimpse of what life could look like if everyone finally chose love over fear. Ruby and James laughing at dinner, holding each other without hiding. Sharing a world that felt safe even for a moment. And then losing it all in the blink of an eye. That shift from light to darkness is exactly what episode 5 is built on. You can feel that they're entering a chapter where every wrong move has consequences. And Ruby knows that. She is terrified that she has become the reason James's life is falling apart. Yet she also knows she can't walk away. She loves him too deeply. But that love comes with a cost. And episode 5 is the moment she realizes just how high that cost can be. The trailer shows James trying to keep it together, but you can see the fear creeping into him. He isn't scared for himself, he's scared for Ruby. He knows exactly how far his father is willing to go. And that protective fear is written all over his face. This is why James is so torn in the trailer. On one side, there's Ruby, the girl he loves, the girl who changed him. The girl who makes him feel seen and understood in a way no one else ever has. And on the other side is Mortimer, the man who raised him, shaped him, controlled him, and made him believe that disobedience is unforgivable. Watching James stuck between these worlds in episode 5 is going to be painful. Because he isn't just choosing between love and family. He's choosing between freedom and fear. And then there's Alice, the person you wouldn't expect to be pulled into this storm, but who now suddenly stands in the middle of it. The problem is, Mortimer knows exactly how important Alice is to Ruby's future. He knows Ruby is depending on her scholarship, her mentorship, her support. And the trailer hints at something that worries me deeply. Mortimer whispering things into Alice's mind, planting doubts, pushing her to distance herself from Ruby. Not because Ruby has done anything wrong, but simply because hurting Ruby is the easiest way to control James. It's cruel, it's calculated, and it's exactly the kind of move Mortimer would make when he feels like he's losing. At the same time, Lydia's world keeps crumbling. You can see it even in her short scenes, the shaking hands, the forced smile, the way she keeps checking over her shoulder like she's afraid Mortimer will appear out of nowhere. In episode 5, Lydia is going to be pushed past her limit. She's hiding her pregnancy, she's dealing with the guilt of lying. She's suffering under Mortimer's anger. And she's terrified of what will happen when the truth comes out. And what's even worse is that she has no one to turn to. Graham is gone. James is drowning in his own problems. And Mortimer, well, he's the last person she can tell. That loneliness is going to lead Lydia into dangerous territory. When people feel cornered, they make desperate decisions. And the trailer suggests she may reach that breaking point very soon. But the wild card in all of this, the one person who could set everything on fire, is Cyril. His behavior around Lydia has crossed the line from interest to obsession. And episode 5 is the moment it stops being harmless. You can see it in the trailer, the way he watches her, the way he tries to insert himself into her life. And the moment he realizes Lydia doesn't want him, his frustration will turn into something darker. I'm afraid he might lash out, not just at Lydia but at James too. And if Mortimer sees an opportunity in Cyril's jealousy, everything could get even worse. A small misunderstanding, a simple rumor, a tiny spark, that's all it takes to burn everything down. The trailer leaves us with this constant, overwhelming fear that one truth, one mistake, one emotional confession can shift the entire story forever. Ruby and James are fighting for each other. Lydia is fighting for survival. Mortimer is fighting for power. And Cyril is fighting for something he was never meant to have. All of these battles are about to collide. And episode 5 is where the fallout begins. The closer we get to episode 5, the more it feels like every character in Haxton Hall is standing on a thin line that could break at any second. And what makes this episode feel so intense is not just what Mortimer might do. It's everything happening around him. Everything that has been slowly building since season 1. You can tell the writers are preparing for a point where all the hidden truths and all the quiet fears finally collide. And the trailer gives us just enough to understand that episode 5 will not simply be another chapter. It's going to be the moment when the consequences begin. And once they begin, there is no way back. What haunts me most about the trailer is how Ruby tries to act strong, even when you can see the fear rising behind her smile. She loves James more deeply than she ever planned. And that love keeps pulling her into places she never asked to be. But what makes Ruby so special is the way she keeps choosing love even when it hurts. She doesn't run from James, she doesn't pretend she's safer without him. She doesn't let fear control her. She takes every risk, every consequence, every possible loss because James is worth it to her. But episode 5 pushes her into a place where she is forced to question whether love alone can protect them. And that fear hits harder than anything. Because Ruby has fought her whole life for a future she finally has within reach. And now she must choose between that future and the boy who completely changed her world, James. On the other hand, carries a different kind of pain. The pain of knowing that the person he loves might lose everything because of him. You can see that conflict written all over his face in the trailer. He wants to protect Ruby, he wants to stand up to Mortimer. He wants to break free from the life he never wanted. But breaking free is not easy when you are raised by someone who believes he owns you. And episode 5 shows just how trapped James truly is. The way he stands in front of Mortimer, trying to look brave while his eyes reveal the truth. It is heartbreaking. He is fighting a man who has controlled him his whole life, and that kind of fight drains a person. But what keeps James going is the thought of Ruby, the only light in a world he never asked for. And as if Ruby and James aren't dealing with enough, Lydia's storyline gets even heavier. The trailer doesn't give us every detail, but the little it reveals is enough to understand that Lydia is reaching her breaking point. She is living with a secret that controls every part of her day. She is walking through a house that feels more like a prison. And she is trying to protect her twins while pretending everything is fine. But the truth is, Lydia is falling apart quietly. And episode 5 is where that quietness becomes dangerous. Because Mortimer is already suspicious. And the moment he feels Lydia is hiding something from him, everything will collapse. The hardest part is that Lydia has no one left. She can't go to Graham. She can't go to James. She can't go to Alice. She is trapped, alone, and exhausted. And secrets mixed with fear always end painfully. But the one person who could make everything worse without even meaning to is Cyril. And the trailer makes this clearer than ever. Cyril's emotions are not stable. His interest in Lydia feels more like obsession now, and obsession always leads to destruction. In episode 5, I feel like Cyril will take matters into his own hands. Not because he wants to help, but because he feels entitled to Lydia's attention. And if Cyril makes one reckless move, one emotional outburst, one jealous decision, everything could spiral. Mortimer won't hesitate to use Cyril's jealousy to his advantage. And Lydia won't survive another attack on her peace. But here's the thing, episode 5 isn't just about fear. It's also about choices. Every character is being forced to choose something. James must choose between fear and love. Ruby must choose between her future and her heart. Lydia must choose between silence and survival. Cyril must choose between acceptance and revenge. And Mortimer, of course, must choose how far he is willing to go to maintain control. What makes episode 5 so terrifying is that every choice comes with a price. And the trailer hints that someone's choice will cause a chain reaction. That changes everything, not just for Ruby and James, but for the entire world of Haxton Hall. It feels like we are standing right before a moment that won't just be dramatic. It will be devastating. Because when pressure builds for too long, something eventually breaks. And episode 5 is going to show us exactly what breaks first, everything we saw in the episode 5 trailer makes it painfully clear that this episode is going to change the entire direction of Haxton Hall. And what scares me most is how easily everything can fall apart. Because every character is carrying something too heavy, too overwhelming, too dangerous to keep inside for much longer. Episode 4 gave us hope. The kind of hope that made us believe Ruby and James might finally get a moment of peace. But episode 5 takes that hope and tests it in the cruelest way possible. And the more you look at the trailer, the more you realize that nothing about this episode will be simple. Every look, every silence, every sentence holds something deeper underneath. And the scariest part? None of them are ready for what is coming. And the person standing at the center of all this chaos is Mortimer. Episode 5 is where Mortimer finally shows everyone just how far he is willing to go. When he feels like he is losing control, he doesn't need to say much, his actions speak louder. The trailer shows the coldness in his eyes, the disappointment he doesn't even try to hide, and the calculated way he watches Ruby and James. Mortimer isn't just angry about James being in love. He is angry because love is something he cannot control. Because Ruby represents everything he fears: independence, choice, freedom. And when a man like Mortimer feels threatened, he uses every weapon he has, even if it means destroying the people closest to him. That is why episode 5 feels so intense. Because Mortimer is no longer trying to hide his intentions. He is ready to fight back, but what hurts even more is how deeply this affects Ruby. She has worked her entire life to build a future for herself, a future she can be proud of, a future no one handed to her. And now that future is being used against her. She knows Mortimer can ruin her opportunities. She knows he can make Alice distance herself. She knows he can make her dreams harder to reach. But she also knows that walking away from James would break her heart in a way she might never recover from. And watching Ruby stand between love and her future, shaking but refusing to step back, is one of the strongest moments the trailer hints at. Because Ruby isn't just fighting for James, she's fighting for herself. For her right to choose who she becomes. James, on the other hand, is being pulled into completely different directions. And episode 5 forces him to face the truth he has been running from for years. He cannot keep everyone happy. If he chooses Mortimer, he loses Ruby. If he chooses Ruby, he loses the life his father built for him. And it's heartbreaking because James never asked for any of this. He never wanted to hurt anyone. He just wanted to love Ruby without losing himself. But this episode is going to push him harder than ever. And the trailer shows that breaking point in his eyes. You can see it, the fear, the frustration, the guilt, the desperation. James is standing at a crossroads, and whichever path he chooses, someone will get hurt. Meanwhile, Lydia's storyline is finally reaching the point where hiding the truth is no longer possible. You can see the exhaustion in her face. You can see how close she is to collapsing under the weight of her secrets. And episode 5 will make her situation even more dangerous. Mortimer has already started to sense that something is wrong. And when a man like him feels uncertainty, he becomes unpredictable. Lydia doesn't just need protection, she needs someone to save her. But that someone feels far away, buried under James's own struggles and Graham's absence. And with Cyril watching her so closely, Lydia is literally surrounded by danger. One wrong move could expose everything, her feelings, her twins, her fear, and that exposure could destroy her and Cyril. He is the final spark that could turn the entire situation explosive. His jealousy has been building for a while now. And episode 5 is where all that frustration comes to the surface. The trailer hints at him acting out, pushing boundaries, and becoming a threat not just to Lydia, but to James as well. And if Cyril does something reckless, even something small, Mortimer will use it. That combination of jealousy, fear, and manipulation is exactly what makes episode 5 feel like the calm before a disaster. Everything in this trailer leads to one truth. Episode 5 will force every character to face the thing they fear most. And the fallout from those choices will shape the rest of the season. Ruby and James are fighting for love in a world built on power. Lydia is fighting for her life in a house built on secrets. And Mortimer is fighting to keep control of a world that is slowly slipping out of his hands. Something big is coming. Something painful. Something that none of them are ready for. And episode 5 is where it all begins. Now tell me, do you think Ruby and James can survive everything Mortimer is about to do? Or will this be the moment their world finally breaks?